Shabbat Shalom. I want to ask you all to take a moment to check to make sure all your devices are turned off. The Apple Watch, a BlackBerry if you still have one, the new iPhone, anything that may make a noise, please take a moment to double check that it is switched off or on silent. I think we make allowances for anybody who may be on call this morning. Good. We gather here together to celebrate as a community this unique moment in the lives of these 9 women. The bar and bat mitzvah ceremony is actually not a mandatory rite of passage. So meaning whenever you turn 12 or 13, you actually already become bar bat mitzvah. So you guys are done. But it's this lack of necessity, the fact that you actually don't have to, makes it all the more so how amazing the effort it is that anyone at any age prepares for this ceremony. And they have prepared extremely hard. And we are here to publicly affirm all of their preparation and to publicly affirm their Jewish identity and commitment to Jewish learning. These women are not 13-year-olds. Well, some of them. Just kidding. These women are not 13-year-olds. Rather, they are role models who have chosen to make a lifelong commitment to Jewish learning and have chosen to publicly affirm their commitment to their learning and to their Jewish identity. We celebrate all of you on this Shabbat morning. For a little under a year, these women have studied Hebrew, liturgy, Torah, and theology. They have wrestled with our tradition and they have asked hard questions. They studied Torah cantillation and they have learned prayer choreography. And while they are all individuals achieving becoming a bat mitzvah today, they have also prepared for today as a community, learning and helping one another prepare for this moment. They will each fulfill roles of being a Baal Tefillah, prayer leaders. They are also going to fulfill the role of Baal Koreh. They are going to be professional Torah chanters this morning. And they are also achieving the role of Darshanit. They will all be preachers this morning, bringing us words of Torah. In addition, they each will share a bit about their own journey, how they got to this moment, as well as show off their knowledge that they have been achieving for the past, I would say, 10 months that they've been studying. So the question really is, what is your role here today? We ask you first to send well wishes for any first-time prayer leader or actually even veteran prayer leaders. It is extremely nerve-wracking to be up here. One of the ways that will make them feel the most comfortable and any prayer leader comfortable is if you participate. You will notice in your prayer book that we will be doing some creative English readings. We will be doing prayers in Hebrew. There's transliteration as well as singing. We hope that you will join in with all of the leaders here this morning. So enough from me. I want to turn our service over to our adult Benot Mitzvah class of 5776. What will signify them taking on the leadership of the service is they're going to put on their talitot. And I want you to know that most of them gathered and together to actually have both a tactile experience and a textile experience. I was really excited when I came up with that. They tied their tzitzit together as a group, as a community, and each of their talitot, some of them designed them from scratch, each of them has a history that they wear on their shoulders this morning. So I want to invite up our adult Benot Mitzvah class to take on the mantle of leadership on this Shabbat morning.
As I wrap myself in the talit, I fulfill the mitzvah of my Creator. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu b'ha'atev b'tzitzit. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to wrap ourselves in the fringes.
Good morning. My job this morning is to explain what the first part of our service means. First, I want to decide why I decided to get bat mitzvahed at the ripe old age of 57 rather than 13. As I said in my spiritual journey last year on Yom Kippur, although I was raised Jewish, I was essentially a high holiday Jew who only went to Westchester Reformed Temple on the high holidays, Seders, and Friday night candle lighting at Camp Robindel. When my brother was being bar mitzvahed, I asked my parents if I could be bat mitzvahed, and they said no, that I would not enjoy Hebrew school. Some can appreciate that. And that was it. And the thought didn't cross my mind for 44 years. I lost my mother when I was 13, my father when I was 38, and my sister when I was 52 and she was 49. I married, raised 2 children, and practiced law. After the BHS Women's Israel trip, summer here, Molly and Karen asked me to join the class. I thought back to my childhood, to the absence of learning anything about what being Jewish meant, to the absence of my parents and my sister, to not knowing why being Jewish was so important to my ancestors. I decided that it was time to learn about the history of Judaism beyond that I am Jewish, to become more than a high holiday Jew. And I'm very glad I did. I have a much deeper and personal understanding of our faith. So, what are the morning prayers? They're designed to put the outside world, whatever's going on in your life, outside your consciousness, and to embrace and immerse yourself in the prayer, the liturgy, the spirit of the service. Liken it to your everyday activities. I like to power walk early in the morning, or play an early, very quick game of golf, or sit on my back deck with a cup of coffee, listen to the water of our little pond in Cobble Hill, and get ready for the day. I rid my head of all that is going on. If it's a walk, I gab with my walking companion. Or golf, I gab with my golfing companion. I immerse myself in what I'm doing. These activities all reach different parts of your brain, of your body, than your regular workday does, and so does prayer. Morning prayers help you get into the moment of the prayer. They allow you to focus on the words that you're speaking, to the significance of being in the synagogue, put the outside world away for a little bit. Maybe it's the melody of the Psalms, which accomplishes it. Maybe it's being in the sanctuary. For years, when I have come to services, I've sat in the way back corner of the sanctuary, and I let the service absorb me, even though I didn't then, and I barely now, read Hebrew. There was something, however, which lets my mind and body become part of the service. So if you look at the words of Ma Tovu, which I, God forbid, will be singing in a few minutes, and there's some people over there that can appreciate that, you will see the words saying, I am here giving myself, giving my thoughts to the service, to the sanctuary, leaving the outside world behind. That's what the morning prayers are all about. So now if you could please turn to page 74 in your small book or 192 in your large book. Thank you. And Cat goes a bit.
We turn now to page 80 in your small volume, page 198 in your large volume for the Nisim B'chol Yom, the blessings for the daily miracles of our lives.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lach vivina lach van b'yem yom ben laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokev kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roko haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamekin matzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten layanef koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'amavir sheina ma'inai unuma me apuvai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani b'tselem k'Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asanan bat chorim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Ozer Yisrael b'guvruah.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Oter Yisrael b'tifarah.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu l'osak b'divrei Torah. Amen. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's mother and father, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. Please turn to page 100 in the small volume and 218 in large for the singing of Psalm 150.
Many of the Hebrew prayers I know, I learned not in a synagogue, but at a small, idyllic Jewish camp in a tiny town called Canaan, Maine. This camp was my first real Jewish community, my first congregation. On Shabbat, my friends and I traded our flip-flops and cutoffs for sandals and sundresses and held hands as we walked to our sanctuary, a grassy spot at the edge of the lake with split logs for pews and a majestic old tree stump for an ark. Although most of them knew a lot more Hebrew than I did, and many had or were soon to become B'nai Mitzvah themselves, there among them, surrounded by the lake and the mountains and the aroma of fresh-baked challah, for the first time I felt comfortable in my Jewishness, as though I was a good enough Jew. Like much of the magic that happens at sleepaway camp, that feeling didn't last once I moved on from those summers in Canaan, Maine. Still, when Ian and I got married, I was adamant that we join a synagogue before we adopted our daughter. I wanted our children to grow up in a congregation, to feel rooted in the Jewish community right from the start. We were both drawn to the warm, peaceful glow of this sanctuary, to Rabbi Lip's down-to-earth sermons and reliable sense of humor, and to the welcoming spirit of its members. We joined BHS in 2002. Rabbi Lip converted and named both of our children, and our daughter Lily will become bat mitzvah right here on this bima a week from today. Yet through it all, I was never able to recapture that feeling of being a good enough Jew. Volunteering on the holidays, baking muffins for the homeless shelter, and delivering meals for congregants in need didn't help. Though, of course, those things are still worth doing. So when I saw that Molly was offering an adult B'nai Mitzvah class last fall, even though the timing clearly wasn't ideal, and I'd never learned my Aleph Bet, I decided to go for it. A year ago, I had never met any of the 8 remarkable women with whom I'm privileged to share the bima today. If I had seen them at services, I would have assumed they were better Jews than I. But during our first class together, I discovered that so many of their stories were remarkably similar to my own. Our reasons for embarking on this journey at that moment were unique, but the circumstances that led us there had endless parallels. Over the course of the year, under Molly's good-humored and patient, very, very patient tutelage, the 9 of us have studied, chanted, debated, laughed, mourned, prayed, tied seat, and shared numerous bottles of wine together. More than once, our classes left me questioning, is this really what I've been saying? Is this what we've all been saying? Is this what I believe? And each time, this wise group of women would meet my questions and doubts with thought-provoking theories, stories, or questions of their own. Together, like true members of the people of Israel, we wrestled with God. In a few moments, together, we'll sing the Shema, a simple but powerful prayer that is at the core of this and any worship service. The Shema and its surrounding blessings are an opportunity for declaring one's praise for God's goodness, creation, wisdom, and protection. When I say the Shema, it brings me back to Canaan, Maine, and it brings me home to BHS. I still have questions about what exactly I believe, but I've learned that asking questions and searching for answers is what being a Jew is all about, and that doing so among this sisterhood of Banot Mitzvah is more than good enough. And I forgot the page I'm supposed to turn. Thank you.
We turn now to page 106 in the small volume, 224 in the large volume, and I'm going to ask everybody to please rise.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
יעמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי. מחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם לעלמיה
יתברך
יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. ושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן.
You may be seated.
Please turn to page 111 in your small book or 229 in your large book. You are praised, who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light. And from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that has turned old a shimmery new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower? How much each new wave that breaks over the sea? You are praised, who forms from the clay that cloaks our lives, that delicate vessels which contain our light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yohitzer hamato arot.
Excuse me. How deeply have you loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah.
והערננו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו מצוותיך, ויחל לבבנו, ויחפה ובירא את שמך, ולא נבוש ונקלם, ולא נקשר לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly, you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praised be you, Adonai, who chooses your people, Israel, in love. Baruch atah Adonai Abocher be'amo Yisrael ba'ah.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha V'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha Uvlektaha v'derech, ukshakbaha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot beinenecha, uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kadoshim le'Eloheihem. Ani Adonai Eloheihem asher hotzeiti echem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihot lechem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Eloheihem, Adonai Eloheihem emet.
This morning, you are hearing about the journeys that each of us took to get to this day. What distinguishes me from the group is that I grew up in an Orthodox home. As a youngster, I can tell you that Shabbat at our home was wonderful and peaceful. Even today, when I close my eyes, I can see my mom blessing Shabbat candles, my father making Kiddush over the wine. Because of that and many other aspects of Orthodoxy, I developed a strong faith. I take enormous pride in our heritage. I am proud of the many advances we have contributed to civilization. I have never wavered. Question, yes. I attended Hebrew school, but the term bat mitzvah was totally foreign in the environment. I can just hear my parents saying, "A bat mitzvah? What are you talking about?" Bear with me, folks. Well, my dear parents, the bat mitzvah ritual is alive and well. It actually started taking hold in the Reform movement sometime in the 70s. Soon after, the conservative movement adopted the ritual, and understand now that some Orthodox synagogues have adopted some form of it. When moving to the Heights, I decided to explore conservative Judaism. I joined the Kane Street Synagogue. I had been a member there for 34 years. And then a few winters ago, experiencing a nagging cough, I couldn't get myself to walk down to Kane Street to say Kaddish for my mom. I decided to walk around the corner and go to the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue, a Reform synagogue. I was received warmly. I was impressed with Serge and enjoyed the service. I came back the following Friday and the Friday after that, and so on. I became a member, and I do hope my association continues for many years to come. When learning that an adult bat mitzvah was to be given here, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this. Do I want to do this now, at this age? For the record, folks, I turned 80 in June. I finally decided yes, and in so doing, have learned a great deal and have gotten to know these very special women who took this journey along with me. When you have heard each of our journeys, which were taken freely, without restriction, take a moment and think of how blessed we are to live in a country where the 4 freedoms exist, one of which is religious freedom. We have the freedom to worship whom we choose, where we choose, and when we choose. And now Cantor Rubin will sing the Mi Chamocha prayer, which celebrates our ancestors crossing the Red Sea, freed from bondage and free to worship as they choose. Let us all join him and celebrate our freedom.
Page 122 in the small volume, 240 in the large volume.
Mihi chamocha b'nim Adonai, mihi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef melech, nora tehilot osef melech, shiva chadasha shibechu geulim, l'shimcha savad hayam. Yachad kulam hodu v'hinichu v'yameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yadai, 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 v'gimbam, yadai, 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 v'gimbam, Zu Yisrael, Kuma bi'ezrat Yisrael, Ufedechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go'aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai,
Rosh Shemo.
Gal Yisrael.
Please rise.
Open up my lips, that my
ולנצח נסחים קדושך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני,
You may be seated.
Please turn to page 133 or 251 in the large volume. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. Please join the cantor on page 132 or 250 for the singing of Yismachu.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי שבת. מקדשי שבי שבת, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, וקוראי שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, bekode onei sabat.
Page 138 or 256 in this larger volume. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth and austerity of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch atah Adonai she'atcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod.
We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and God of our ancestors, forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov simcha ulcha na'eh lahodot. And Linda Feldman will now speak.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi. Who would have thought that I'd be standing here today becoming, at my age, a bat mitzvah? Not I, nor anyone in that row who knows me very well. I consider myself a secular Jew, and yet here I am. I grew up in the 1950s in Brooklyn, and back then girls were not bat mitzvahed. I seem to remember going to Hebrew school for a very little while, but honestly that's all I remember, except that I think I brought a non-kosher snack into my Orthodox Hebrew school classroom. I didn't think much about being Jewish, it was just something that I was. On a day-to-day basis, Judaism didn't ask anything of me, and it didn't take up much of my time. When my first son was born, my husband and I decided that he'd have a secular circumcision in the hospital. But my father was still with us, and Judaism and its traditions mattered so much to him that my husband, who was kind and generous and not Jewish, asked that we honor my father's wishes and have a bris. So 8 days after our son was born, 50 people squeezed into our tiny Brooklyn Heights apartment for bagels and lox. And when my father held Matthew on his lap and the moil leaned over them, I clung to my mother and sobbed. And at that moment, I felt connected to every Jewish woman who had ever come before me. And I realized that my connection to my Jewish heritage mattered. And it still does. It gives me a sense of belonging. I know who my people are, and I'm proud to belong to their long traditions. And although it waxes and wanes in my life, recently, as my children have grown and gone on to their own lives, I have found a sense of belonging here at Brooklyn Heights Synagogue. First through the Women's Seder and then our wonderful women's trip to Israel, I have found my community. And it is within this community that I have decided to become a bat mitzvah. I feel welcome at Brooklyn Heights Synagogue. And sometimes on a Friday after a long week at work, I'll come to services, take a deep breath, and in this sanctuary, I find peace. But peace in so much of the world is impossible to come by, and I never forget that. As I read the Siddur at services, I am troubled by the distance between the prayers we read about peace and the current reality on the ground. Why is it that throughout history, people have found going to war easier than finding a way to live together in peace? What is it about human nature that we see our differences more clearly than we see what makes us so much alike? We read in the very prayer book you're holding that we ought not pray for unbroken peace, something humanity has never known. Why not? Isn't that exactly what we should pray for, and more importantly, work toward? Please think about that as we join Cantor Rubin on page 140 or 258 for the singing of Sim Shalom.
Sim shalom, tova ubracha, kein v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol Yisrael amecha, barcheinu avinu kulanu ke'echad, ve'or panecha. כי מאור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, בין בחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. תורת חיים ואהבת חסד, ואהבת חסד, וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חיים וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, כל ישראל עמך, וטוב בעיניך יברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, בין בחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom.
Amen.
We'll take a few moments now for silent prayer, either with the words that you find in your heart on this Shabbat morning, or with the words prompted on page 142 in the small volume or 260 in the large volume.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. והכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. והכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. והכל ישראל ויאמרו אמן.
Good morning. Last summer, Rabbi Molly and I had agreed to meet one morning to talk about becoming an adult bat mitzvah. I showed up at the said meeting spot and saw Molly sitting off to the side. A sparkly ray of sunshine was beaming in through the window, engulfing her in light. She looked very rabbinical. She seemed so much at home. It wasn't till much later when I started studying with Molly that I realized that's just her nature. She's at home everywhere. She disarms you. Molly looked at me and said, "Did you ever have a bat mitzvah?" And I said, "Oh no. The men in my family did, and well, all my female cousins did, but on a Friday night or a Saturday morning, but only a Haftorah service, and they never read from the Torah. Or maybe they made a speech, but for women only. Or they had a big party. I mean, I was in Fiddler on the Roof." But no, I did not have a bat mitzvah. And Molly asked, "Well, how about now?" And she explained that she was gathering a group of women to be bat mitzvahed, and the classes would start sometime in the fall, and I should join. So I did. I started doing some research about the history of the bat mitzvah. Rabbi Molly told me about Judith Kaplan. On Saturday morning, March 18th, 1922, 2 years after women earned the right to vote in our country, 12-year-old Judith Kaplan, the daughter of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, stepped forward and stood just below the bima at her father's synagogue, the Society for Advancement of Judaism on the Upper West Side. With the Torah scroll covered, but in sight, Judith recited the preliminary blessing, read a portion of the Torah in Hebrew and English from her personal prayer book, and then intoned the closing blessing. Miss Kaplan is known throughout history to be the first female to have a bat mitzvah in the United States. I wanted to know more. Molly told me that Miss Kaplan has a daughter, Anne, who lives in Brooklyn. So I reached out to Anne, and after we spoke briefly, she invited me over for a visit the following evening. Anne told me about the morning of her mother's bat mitzvah, as the story was told to her many years ago. Anne's grandfather, Rabbi Kaplan, told his daughter Judith just the night before that the next day she would recite the prayers at temple alone. So the next morning on Shabbat, 12-year-old Judith Kaplan bravely walked, as she described, through a sea of men and stood facing the bima and prayed out loud and alone. I have 2 sons, Henry and Abraham. Henry is 11 and a half years old, and soon he will begin his bar mitzvah journey. I want to be able to help him. I want my sons to grow up with the mindset that they can do and be anything they dream of. It is their legacy to be brave and willful, to push the boundaries, and to never, ever give up. In a few moments, the 9 of us will stand before you and read from the Torah. My father helped me understand why we read from the Torah publicly. It is because this is our dialogue with God. It is the story of our people. It is the retelling of our culture, our way of life, our guide into the difficult passages of our lives. And the dialogue we have with God helps us realize who we are as individuals and gently reveals to us the expression of the divine within each one of us. But my real reason for deciding to become a bat mitzvah and to stand on the bima before you and read from the Torah is because I can. Because I'm fortunate enough to be a woman born in the second half of the 20th century, a Jewish woman born in this great country whose great-grandparents and grandparents and father fled Europe during the Holocaust precisely because they were Jewish. I am benefiting today not only from their struggle, but also from the struggle that women endured less than 100 years ago when they earned the right to vote in this country. So today is about freedom. I am so grateful for those who paved the way for me to stand here right now, at this moment, facing you, to say, please rise so we can read from the Torah. Please rise and turn to page 244 in the small volume and 362 in the large.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש שמו, גדול אדוני איתי, ולרום שמו יחדיו. והגבורה והתפארת והנצח וההוד, כי כה בשמיים ובארץ, כי כה בשמיים ובארץ, אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל רוב. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להקדשו, רוממו וישתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו ישתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להקודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו וישתחוו להקודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו.
You may be seated. Aren't they doing a fantastic job? You'll be okay without the thing.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. I began my journey here at Brooklyn Heights Synagogue over 40 years ago, when this community was located in a rented space in Grace Church. I never much liked that Hebrew school, and coincidentally, the subject of today's Torah reading about Sarah was literally the last subject of my last day at Hebrew school around 1973 till last year. The last day of Hebrew school for me was as follows. We were learning Hebrew by following a course of study called Rocket to Mars, wherein a nice Jewish boy named Mark goes to Mars, where luckily for all involved, they spoke Hebrew. I was bored in class and held my own conversations with my classmates, but the teacher punished me by saying to the class, "Do you know why Sarah was not able to give birth till she was 96 years old?" Well, because she had a big mouth like our Sarah here today. 40 years later, I returned to Brooklyn Heights Synagogue to become bat mitzvah under the great Rabbi Kane. So in these last 40 years or so, I now see that the first part of this journey was a critical detour. On this detour, I explored Quakerism at Brooklyn Friends and its values of tikkun olam, especially as it applied to the civil rights, women's rights, and the labor movements. But I have to say, the one who brought me back to be standing here at the Bima today was my mother. My mother's death 10 years ago was and is still painful, but she showed me a pathway to the divine. Searching and finding love as something to strive for out in the universe, but also in the everyday. To that end, I started a meditation practice about 7 years ago, making my connection to the divine more solid. Buddhism and meditation and my lifelong connection to Quakerism made my daily practice focus on a daily obligation to repair the world. So my bat mitzvah is a new beginning of spiritual inquiry where I can start to access Judaism in a deeper way, to broaden my meditation practice to include more mystical and spiritual dimensions of Judaism that before were abstract and far away. So, like Sarah from our portion, this is part of renewal and repair. As you have already heard from many of us up here on the Bima today, in fact, to a woman, becoming a bat mitzvah is about repair, part of tikkun olam, or for renewal as us, as women. That engenders the question, what is our role as women in the Jewish tradition?
This week's Torah portion, Vayera, which means "and he saw," and which we will be chanting, richly interweaves important themes for women who have carried out the sacred task of perpetuating our people, Lador Vador, generation to generation. It presents a dichotomy of Sarah, who at once is portrayed as a very strong matriarch, but as well as a weak character, with hardly a voice, with hardly any agency at the intersection of cross currents under which she has no control. As is characteristic in our tradition, the study of the portion generated several questions. So first, what was or is the role of women in Judaism? We learn from this Torah portion that women had two roles as exemplified by Sarah. During her lifetime as a mother, to procreate, to nurture, to protect, it was the physical relationship with threatened survival. Beyond her lifetime, her role, again, was Lador Vador, from generation to generation. Her role was genealogical and to promote continuity, to make sure that the Jewish people continued through her son Isaac. So, if women's role was to perpetuate our people, what was the men's role? It was to perpetuate the religion. But, as a result, women were excluded from many of the most meaningful aspects of the Jewish religion, from its rituals to its leadership. Today, the women's role to perpetuate our people is taken literally when seen through the lens of the more conservative Orthodox movements, in which children are only considered Jewish if their mother is Jewish. But at the same time, in those same congregations of those Jewish movements, women cannot give voice to the Torah. They cannot read from the Torah. They will not be counted in minyan. They cannot study and assume leadership roles as cantors or as rabbis. Thankfully, that is not the case in Reform Judaism and is not the case here at BHS. As 9 women seeking to find our place in the continuity of our people, we are now able to have the agency and the voice to which Sarah was not entitled. We are taking on the special roles as leaders in our communities and must determine what that means for our lives and how we will each play a role in perpetuating our people. Today, as you hear our 9 women's voices reading from the Torah, please take note of what that experience is like for you.
And this leads to our second question, of which there are 50 questions, and we'll be here till 4. Just kidding. Sorry, Molly, a little spontaneous. Our second question, how does Sarah reflect our lives as women today with all of our many roles, multifaceted ways of being in the world, and complex contemporary challenges? We would say to Sarah, in many parts of the Parsha, we see you as having no agency or voice, as Karen just said. You do not discover and announce that you are pregnant. You are told by Abraham, who in turn was told by God. You have no input in naming your son. Abraham names him. You and Hagar are not allowed or given the opportunity to negotiate directly about the fates of your sons. Yet you, Sarah, can also, and perhaps even more so, be seen as our strong matriarch. Sarah, you impress us with your fortitude to fulfill your kavanah, your focus, perpetuating the Jewish people. You became our collective mother in our people's history, ensuring that your seed, your people survived despite your advanced years, hampering our ability to see its success in the future. Your acts of force, Sarah, and determination fly in the face of acceptable ways for women to act. In the course of your life's journey, at times you were cruel, as when you banished Hagar and Ishmael, and you made mistakes. But aren't the complex and contradictory the most interesting among us? So we are grateful to you, Sarah, for being a role model for complexity, strength, and wisdom, to show us that we must act to do what we believe in, even if at the moment others dislike what we do, because we are being Sarah women and not malleable or easy.
Our third question, and okay, we'll make it our final question. We'll do that. What does it mean to be renewed? Well, Sarah giving birth at 90 or 96, oy vey, certainly exemplifies the ultimate renewal, the ultimate example of somebody who can grow and change at any age of our lives. And yes, we are 9 women of varying ages. And today, we are giving birth. Far less painful, but all the same wondrous to our own renewal. Our strength as a religion and as a people resides in being nimble, in being able to change. By bringing women as leaders into our religion, we make the religion and the people far stronger for encouraging different views, different perspectives. Today, we as 9 women are weaving together our individual life experiences to make a stronger, more diverse, richer fabric, not only for ourselves, not only for BHS, but for the broader Jewish community. As for my life experience, my thread in this fabric, this moment for me is like coming home. You see, I have roots in Reformed Judaism that date back centuries to its founding in Germany. And more recently, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and went to Temple Emmanuel. And there are some folks here from Temple Emmanuel even. There, at my father's insistence, I and my sister learned Hebrew. But in our respective classes, we were the only girls. And it certainly was not with the intention of becoming a bat mitzvah. It was just, you should learn Hebrew. It was a rite of passage not offered then. And when it was offered, when I was a senior in high school, my father said, it's a party, you already know the Hebrew, it's fine. So it really took the burgeoning of Jewish feminism in the 1970s for the bat mitzvah ceremony to be adopted broadly here in the States. But it's only recently that I learned from Rabbi Lipp and Rabbi Person that, in fact, each congregation chose if and when to offer a bat mitzvah. And remember, I grew up in Texas. A whole other country. So today, this moment for me is about exercising my right as a woman to have a voice and stand up and be counted in the Jewish religion. About taking a step to address the injustice of Jewish women not having a voice. I do so in the memory of my mother, of my maternal grandmother, and in my talit, made from fabric from my paternal grandmother. She's a woman I feel I've gotten to know quite recently over these last few years. I've spent time translating and studying letters that she wrote to my father. And I've gotten to know her in ways that I've been able to piece together their lives, she and my grandfather's life, before they perished in the Holocaust. So this moment is about having a voice denied to my ancestors and solidifying and celebrating a core part of my history and of my identity.
And now, on behalf of the strong women in our history, Sarah and also Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah.
And on behalf of Linda, Eileen, Olivia, Deb, Shauna, Linda, and Margie, let us say Lador Vador.
I want to, we're moving now into the reading from the Torah scroll, and I want to invite you to follow along and share following along. Behind the pews, in many of the pews, there are our Torah commentaries. We actually have 3 different commentaries. We certainly value choice here at the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue. I also want to just, for those of you who don't know, we're live streaming the service, so the people in the library, there are many Torah commentaries in there as well for you to use. There is the Plout Torah commentary that does not have a golden menorah on it, and you can find... You can find in our Torah commentary without the golden menorah, we're on page 123. If you have the Plout Torah commentary with the golden menorah, we're on page 124. And in the women's Torah commentary, that's the green Torah commentary, that's page 88. The women will be chanting from Genesis chapter 18, verses 9 through 15. And then they're going to be skipping a few chapters, and they'll be starting in Genesis 21. So you'll have to flip a few pages. So again, in the Torah commentary without the golden menorah, page 123. In the Torah commentary that's blue with the golden menorah, page 124. And the women's Torah commentary, page 88. For our very first Aliyah on this Shabbat morning, I want to call up Linda Rapchick, Eileen Dernfeld, and Shauna Reese-France. Ta'amdu, 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 habanot Leah bat Fanny, v'chaya Chana bat Yehuda v'Devora, v'Shana bat Mordechai v'Elka, habanot mitzvah la'aliyah ha'torah. Baruch Adonai Ambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah, Baruch Adonai Habarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vayomeru elav aye Sarah ishtecha vayomer hine vaohel vayomer shov ashuv elecha chaet chaya Vehine vein lesara ishtecha lesara shomat petak haohel vehu acharav leAvraham lesara Zekenim Bayamin Chadav Liot Lesara Orak Kenashim.
Eileen, why don't you just use Linda's Matyan? Do you see the spot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen carefully. Where are we?
Right there.
Vatitzak Saram Bikarbe Lamur Achare Beloti Haitali Edna Vadoni Zarken Vayomer Adonai El Avraham Lama Zeh Tochaka Sarah Lemur Ha'af Emunam Eled Va'ani Zakanti Haipile Me Adonai Daba Lamoed Ashuv Elecha Ka'et Chaya Ukshara Vein Vat Chaches Sarah Lemur Lo Tzochakti Ki Yarea Vayomer Lo Ki Tzochakt.
Excellent job. I need to come over here now. We're going to skip to Genesis 21, the very first verse.
Ve'Adonai pakad et Sarah ka'asher amar vayas Adonai leSarah ka'asher diber v'tav bateled Sarah leAvraham bein litzkunav Lamoed asher diber oto Elohim veyitkra Avraham et shem beno hanolad lo, asher yalda lo, Sarah Yitzchak. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
For our second aliyah, I want to call up Margie Pierce, Linda Feldman, and Karen Gordon. Ta'amdu, ta'amdu, ta'amdu. Masha Yasha bat Yosef v'Barbara. Leah bat Zalman. Ruth bat Binyamin v'Chava. Habenot mitzvah la'aliyah ha'torah.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Amrach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayhamal Abraham et Yitzhak benoho ben Shemonah Yamin ka'asher tiva oto Elohim be'Abraham ben Manat Shana be'havaled loho et Yitzhak benoho vato homer Sarah Terkok Asali Elohim Kol Hashomeya Yitzhak Li.
Vatomer mi milel va'avraham Heini kavanim Sarah ki yaladati vein lizkunav vayagdal hayeled vayagamel vayas Avraham mishte gadol beyom hagamel et Yitzchak vatera Sarah et ben Hagar Hamitrid Asher Yalda LaAvraham Mitzachek.
Vatomer LaAvraham Garesh Hama Hazot Viet Bano Ki Lo Yirash Ben Ha'ama Hazot Im Bani Im Yitzhak Vayera Hadavar Me'ot Be'enei Avraham Al Adot Bano Vayomer Elohim El Avraham Al Yera Be'enecha El Hana'ar V'al Amotecha Kol Asher Tomar Elecha Sarah Shema Bekola Ki V'yitzhak Yikarei Lecha Zara. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam natan b'choheinu, Baruch atah Adonai, notein haTorah. Amen.
Breathe. There's like, everybody's like, oh. It's very hard. It's very hard. You, in front of you, you have vowels and marks and all of these things. In our scroll, we have none of that. They are just the letters to guide their way. So they are doing an incredible job. Our third aliyah, I want to call up Sarah Horowitz, Deb Levine, and Olivia Somer Rosenbaum. Ta'amdu, 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 Sarah Chai bat Mordechai ve'Brucha, Devorah Chana bat Ephraim ve'Yona, Zimra bat Baruch ve'Margo, Habanot Mitzvah la'aliyah ha'Torah.
Here we go. Oh, can I have a yard?
Yes. Great. Okay.
Oh my God, right there.
Great.
Did we all do this? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We have to find it again. Vegam et ben Chama lagoy asimenu ki zoraha u vayashkem Avraham baboker vayikach lahem et mayim vayiten al hagar sam al shichma ve'at hayeled vayshelchecha vatelech vateta bamidaber be'er shava vayiklu chamayim min chachemet vateshelacha at chayeled ta'achat ahad hasihim.
Vatelech vateshev la mineged harchik kim tachave keshet ki amra al bamod hayaled vateshev mineged vatisa et kola vatevk Vayishma Elohim Ekol Hana'ar Vayikra Malach Elohim El Hagar Min Hashamayim Vayomer La Malach Hagar Al Tir'i Kishama Elohim El Kol Hana'ar Ba'asher Husham Kumi Su'iyat Hana'ar V'hachaziki et Yadech Bo Ki L'goy Gadol Asimenu.
Vayivkach Elohim et enecha
ותרא באר מים, ותלך ותמלא את חכמת מים, ותשק את הנהר. ויהי אלוהים את הנהר, ויגדל, וישב במדבר, ויהי רובה קשת. וישב במדבר פרן, ותיקח לו אמו אישה מארץ מצרים. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nitochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
We turn to page 252 in the small volume and 370 in the large volume, and I'm going to call up Shauna Reese-France to lift the Torah, and Linda Feldman to dress the Torah, and Rabbi Serge Lipp to spot the Torah.
Flip it around. Israel, וזאת התורה, על פי אדוני ביד משה, וזאת התורה, וזאת התורה אשר שם משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה, וזאת התורה לפני בני ישראל, וזאת התורה על פי אדוני ביד משה, וזאת התורה.
You may be seated. To bring us their journeys, and also words about our Haftorah portion, I want to first invite up Linda Rapchick.
Shabbat Shalom. All beginnings are difficult. Our Haftorah this Shabbat comes from the second book of the Kings, chapter 4, 137, for those that care. For those of you that may not know what Haftorah is, it is traditionally recited on Shabbat and holiday mornings. It is a selection from one of the biblical books of the prophets, and it is read after the Torah reading. These selections are read from the books of Navim, or the prophets, and only selected passages from the prophets make it into the Haftorah cycle. These stories resemble the ones recited in the Torah reading of that day. They help us try to interpret the meaning of the Torah reading. As Sarah and Karen discussed earlier, Sarah and Abraham are childless until a very old age. The Haftorah portion relays a similar story about a childless rich woman who is met by Elisha and also bears a child at an older age. In both the Torah and the Haftorah portions, hospitality was offered without expecting anything in return. In the Haftorah, Elisha meets a barren rich woman with an elderly husband. They offer him a meal and a place to sleep whenever he passed through town. They even went so far as building a guest room for his stays. The woman said to her husband, "I am sure that this man who comes here so often is a holy man of God." Elisha recognizes the generosity of this woman and rewards her with a child. The Bible seems to be suggesting that hospitality is about not expecting anything in return for generosity and kindness. Tikkun olam. When I read the Haftorah and the Torah portions today, I immediately related to my own personal journey. Along the way, we do things for others, and often we do, in fact, expect something in return. I have through the years been upset with friends and family that I've gone out of my way for, and then when it was time for them to reciprocate, they did not. Maybe the Bible is too idealistic when it comes to hospitality. My journey started 26 years ago when my son Adam was born. Happy birthday. Ron and I had a discussion and agreed that we would raise Adam and any other children that may follow Jewish and become active in the Jewish community. From that moment on, BHS became our extended family. My involvement was joining the choir, and I did this because I liked to sing and wanted to meet people in the congregation. Ron joined various committees, religious school committee, board of trustees, the committee that worked on starting the preschool, and anything else that may have been asked of him. I cooked for the homeless shelter, but never served the guests or stayed overnight. My hospitality went just as far as my comfort zone went. The thought of going to work and not having a comfortable night's sleep was not feasible. I realized that my hospitality goes just so far. I also know that we should do things because we want to and not because we expect anything in return. Selfless giving. If we expect something in return, we will inevitably be disappointed. I was definitely on the fence of becoming an adult bat mitzvah. Some may think it is ridiculous considering my upbringing, while others understand the feeling of finally making a commitment and promise to become more involved in the community, especially the BHS community. I may need help along the way, but I know that my family and friends will be there to help me. Ron and my parents will always be my guiding light if I do go astray. I am in awe of my children and all of you that were bar and bat mitzvahed at the age of 13. I honestly don't think I would have been able to learn as much as you did, that's for sure. I want to end with a few quotes that I borrowed from the book, The Word. Postpone not till tomorrow what you can do today. When you must, you can. To be old is a glorious thing when one has not unlearned what it means to begin. And a true friend is someone who is there for you when they'd rather be doing anything else. I love you all.
So we have one more speaker, and then after that, I'll ask the ushers to continue passing out the marshmallows, and I'll explain about the marshmallows as they pass them out after Olivia is done speaking. So.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm stalling a little bit because I'm hoping my son is going to come back from wherever he is, but maybe not. Today's Haftarah portion, as you just heard from Linda, tells of, there he is. Today's Haftarah portion, as you just heard from Linda, tells of how, in recognition of hospitality, the prophet Elisha, disciple of Elijah, works 3 miracles. He supplies limitless oil to be sold by an impoverished widow. He rewards a rich but postmenopausal woman with the promise of a son. And when that boy later suffers heat stroke, Elisha revives him from apparent death by an act that sounds like nothing other than mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. In thinking about these stories and the Torah portion, I was struck by the reaction of the beneficiaries of these miracles. Told that they will become mothers in their old age, Sarah laughs at the absurdity of the notion. And the rich woman of Shunem confronts Elisha, saying, "Do not delude your servant." Their reaction is not simply, this is too miraculous, it can't possibly happen. Their reaction is, it can't happen to me. It is that feeling of it can't happen to me that has brought me to this day. I have long aspired to become a Bat Torah, and until today, much of my Jewish experience has been about not feeling Jewish enough. Both my parents were born in New York. My father grew up in the Bronx and became a bar mitzvah in the early 40s. My mother lived on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, where, as an assimilated Jew, she had no Jewish education. As adults, my parents were both, as they like to say, devout atheists. My father led Passover at my cousin's place, but we never went to shul, except for friends' bar mitzvahs. I grew up with a Christmas tree every year, and even went to a Christmas Eve church service chosen by my mother for the music. Music has always been my key to spirituality, but I knew I was an outsider. At Queens College, in cafeteria conversations with students from Bayside and Kew Gardens who belonged to Temple youth groups and the JDL, I was always bound to come up not Jewish enough. In fact, it was not until law school that I first attended high holiday services. The day before I married Dan, who I should say had a perfectly proper Jewish education, we went for the Aufruf, the calling up of the groom and bride, to say the Torah blessings at my incipient in-laws synagogue. The rabbi there was appalled that I did not have a Hebrew name and wanted me to just take one. There was no just about it in my mind. One new name, my husband's surname, was enough for one weekend. The rabbi was forced to make do with my English name. He made a speech ostensibly to bless us and give us life advice. I do not remember his words, but his remarks had an undertone of disdain that even today leaves me with a sick feeling in the pit of my gut. I was deeply moved by my in-laws' decision to leave that congregation after that. In the years that followed, I thought often of learning to read from the Torah. So when Molly offered this class last fall, I decided it was finally time. And when Serge asked for my Hebrew name, for my boys' B'nai Mitzvah this past January, I was finally ready to choose one. I agonized over that choice until I came across Zimra. Zimra means song, and it sounds just enough like Somer to perpetuate my father's name. I had found my Jewish identity. Believe it or not, this brings me back to today's Torah and Haftorah portions and the miracles they describe. Sarah is given a child. Hagar and Ishmael are revived from parching thirst, as I chanted in my portion. The poor widow is restored to solvency. The rich and generous woman is granted a child. Her son is resuscitated from heat stroke and coma. Throughout, we are shown that where there is holiness, it's never too late for a life to be transformed. It's never too late to become a bat mitzvah.
So now I would like to invite the ushers to pass out the marshmallows. We can do it. As Olivia and Linda mentioned, we're going to be reading our Haftorah portion for this Shabbat from the Book of Kings. You can find this week's Haftorah portion in the Plaut commentary without the golden menorah on page 334, or in the Plaut commentary with the golden menorah on page 149. The marshmallows, we will cue you about when to throw the marshmallow. If you don't have one, raise your hand. The ushers will bring them over. Yes, don't eat them. Don't eat them. So the marshmallows, we will cue you about when you should throw them. I've already told that our Benot Mitzvah class, they are not allowed to throw it back at you. It is only for you to pelt them. And we ask that we don't really know all of the origins of the pelting of the Bat Mitzvah, Benot Mitzvah with sweetness, but we can say that we hope that when you pelt them with the sweetness, that you pray that their Torah learning always be sweet. So I'm going to invite them to come on up. If you want to follow along with the Haftorah blessings, you're most welcome to on page 254 in the small volume or 372 in the large volume. At the end. What?
No, we're good.
You good? Okay. One. You want to cue them in? Yeah. Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'minim tovim v'ratzah l'divrehem hanemeim b'emet Baruch atah
Adonai, Habocher b'Torah, u'Moshe avdo, u'V'Yisrael amo, u'B'nvi'ei ha'emet matzeh. Ve'isha achat min shei v'nei haneviim tza'aka el Elisha lemor avdecha ishi met v'ata yadata ki avdecha chaya yarei et Adonai v'hanoshe ba lakachat et shnei yiladai lo lavadim vayomer elecha Elisha ma eselach hagidi li ma yesh lach babayit vatomer ein l'shiftecha chol babayit ki imasuch shamen vayomer lechi shalila kelim min chahutz me'et kol shechenayich kelim reikim al tam iti. Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol ha'olamim tzadik b'kol ha'darot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'aseh ha'medaber u'mayim shekol b'dvarav emet v'aseh al ha'torah ve'al ha'agadah ve'al ha'milim ve'al yom ha'shabbat ha'azeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likadshah u'limnah lekavod u'tifaret al ha'kol Adonai Eloheinu אנחנו נלמח ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בכל תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
is my pleasure to call the senior rabbi of the congregation, Rabbi Serge Lip, to bless these Benot Mitzvah.
So on Shabbos Eve, last night at our tables, we have an opportunity to bless one another. There are a lot of words we use. For the women of Israel, we say, Yisimech Elohim kasara Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May God make you as Sarah, and as Rebecca, and as Rachel, and as Leah. Not implying that each was the same, but rather that each had a different quality, a uniqueness about them. May each of you bring your unique qualities and bind them together, balancing them out as our community needs, so that we will invoke your names, even as we invoke the matriarchs of Israel. We also say in the evening, Eshet Chayil mi yimtza, a valorous woman who can find. Far above precious things is she. You are our women of valor, having brought your teaching, your learning, your commitment, your perseverance to this moment, inspiring all of us to come to Torah from whatever direction we have been in, however much we have been spun around, turned away. You've reminded us each day is a new beginning to return and commit. I bless you with the words of the ancient Kohen, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and guard over you. Ya'el Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May God's countenance shine graciously upon each of you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lechen shalom. May God's countenance enfold you, complete you, grant you the harmony that is peace, which doesn't mean that we set aside our differences, but rather that we integrate those differences and we create shalom, peace. May you be blessed and bring your blessing to all of us. Mazal tov, he's key, he's key, he's key. Be strong, and strengthen all of us. Mazel tov.
You're still working. You're still working. You're still working. We're going to put the Torah back into the Ark, page 256 in the small volume, 374 in the large volume. I'm going to ask Karen to come pick up the Torah, and I'm going to ask the congregation to please rise. And Sarah and Eileen come open the Ark.
יחללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל מחזיריו, בפני ישראל על מרובו.
God's Torah is perfect, reviving the soul. God's teaching is pure, making wise the simple. God's precepts are right, delighting the mind. God's mitzvot are clear, giving light to the eyes. God's word is pure, enduring forever. God's judgments are true and altogether just.
לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו. אצטעיני ועלה תזיקינה, וטוב והמאושר. Let
may be seated. It is my pleasure to call up the president of our Board of Trustees, Rhonda Epstein, to present our Benot Mitzvah class with a present on behalf of the congregation.
Shabbat Shalom. And welcome everyone, family, friends, congregants, visitors, and of course, our Benot Mitzvah. I don't know about all of you, but I was moved to laughter and moved to tears during this morning's service. And so for that, we all say thank you. It's really been wonderful. I was thinking about what I was going to say, and because most Saturday mornings, if you come here, there will be a 13-year-old up as the B'nai Mitzvah. And as next week, you're all invited back for Lily's, by the way, next Saturday. Right? That's okay. Okay. So what are the differences and the similarities? And I was just thinking about it as I was sitting here this morning. They all have the blue binder, right? Right? You see that they have different books, and that's telling them everything that we have in front of us and more. And they've all chanted Torah, and they've all given a small part of a Devar Torah. But they've all come to this for different reasons, similar, some, but all on their own, willingly, without any parent pushing them and telling them they had to come. And for that, makes it unusual, somewhat, and really special. And the friendships that they have forged amongst themselves, as you've heard each one of them say how amazing it was to do this journey together, is also really special and something, quite frankly, I have to admit, I'm envious of. It's really wonderful. And it's wonderful that they have BHS to do it, and that we've provided, all of us have provided a place where someone can say, I'd like to become an adult bat mitzvah, and they can be, and they can find a community here to do it with, and that's really, really special. So I'm very proud to be part of this community, and as you've heard from each of them, they are as well. Something that we tell our B'nai Mitzvah usually is that, we always need Torah chanters on the holidays, and now you are all being placed on that list. You're also being placed on the list for our lay-led summer services. So, over the summer, the clergy gets a break, and we have lay leaders. So, you're all invited back for that as well. The congregation and the Board of Trustees also gives gifts to our B'nai Mitzvah. These are slightly different gifts, and so I have them for each one of you, and I guess I'll call you each up and give it to you. What we have is an adult-sized Tanakh, one that is legible to those of us, because the ones that we give our students are really small, and no matter how far I hold it away, I can't read it. And each one of these books has a book plate in it, dedicated to each one of you, signed by Rabbi Lipp, Rabbi Kane, and Cantor Rubin. And it's given to each of you commemorating this wonderful milestone and event. So, Deb? I'm going to help you run it. Okay, Deb, this is yours. And Karen.
Sarah.
And Sarah. And you can all see that. Shauna. Shauna. I'm back to I'm spinning around. This is great.
Margie.
And Margie is right here.
Olivia.
And this is like a spinning top.
Eileen. Right here.
Okay.
Linda Rapchick. And Linda Phelps.
all of you can join me in wishing them Mazel Tov. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. There was a secret. So I'm calling up Karen and Shauna because they have a few extra things to say.
Molly's like, uh-oh, what can this be? It wasn't in the plan. It's okay. It'll be quick, I promise.
Cantor Bruce. Rabbi Molly. Okay. Cantor Bruce, to say that we will forever hear your voice in our heads is definitely an understatement. But we will, and not only of your singing, but also of your encouragement.
And your patience. Some of us can read Hebrew and are a little tone deaf, and others of us have a very keen ear and, are learning the Hebrew. But regardless of where we were in our path, you were truly unflappable, and you enabled each of us to get to this day and feel that we could chant. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And Molly.
It's my bat mitzvah.
There you go. So Molly has a remarkable, incredible ability to create spaces and opportunities of very special spiritual moments. And each of us here today had the gift of having one of those moments because each of us in a rehearsal read from the Torah for the first time in a one-on-one session with Molly, with her literally and figuratively by our sides. And it was, to each of us, a remarkable experience. So thank you so much for your wisdom, your presence, and truly the gift that you are that has lit our path of our bat mitzvah.
And today in the Jewish calendar, which is the 18th of Sheshvan, I just happen to know that, marks the 8th anniversary of when Rabbi Molly learned how to ride a bike. So in her words, it was a magical day. Learning to ride a bike at a somewhat older age continues to be a source of pride and inspiration for me. And Molly, you have made this a magical day for us. We are enormously grateful to you for teaching us to ride a bike at our bat mitzvah bike at a somewhat older age also. So thank you for bringing us together and leading us on this journey, and we love you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I said this at the High Holidays. I feel bad for the Elenu once again. How do you follow up on that? But we are going to now turn to our concluding prayers. And I should say thank you. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. You did a fantastic job here. It has been an absolute pleasure to get to know you, and we all couldn't be prouder. So again, Mazal Tov. You're wonderful. So page 283 in the small volume and page 587 in the large volume. Please rise.
Lift
we remain standing as our hearts and minds turn to that of memory. And on this Shabbat morning, we call to mind Mildred Herbstman, Julius and Dora Dernfeld, Marlene Mund, and Maria Fafi, remembered by Eileen Dernfeld. Sidney Feldman, Martha and John Wright, Beth Price, remembered by Linda Feldman. Abraham and Sarah Feit, Dora and Elias Reese, Hugh France, and Howard Mazel, remembered by Shauna France. Rudolph and Hannelore Baum, Julie and Norbert Baum, Florence and Joe Gordon, Phyllis Markowitz, remembered by Karen Gordon. Eleanor Nathanson and Jack Nathanson, Bertha Levine, Daniel Levine, and Frank Levine, remembered by Deb Levine. Bernice and Milton Horowitz, Esther and Harry Davidson, Israel Horowitz, Estelle and Marvin Woolen, Shirley and Marvin Marcus, remembered by Sarah Horowitz. Stuart Pierce, Barbara Pierce, Carol Pierce, Lois Pierce, Celia Perlmutter, and Naomi Wander, remembered by Margie Pierce. Ron Rapchick, Sylvia and Jack Rapchick, Faye Lou Joel Navarro, Seymour and Betsy Leon, Tilly George and Warren Fine, Roberta Racco, Gertie and Bernie and Ellie Wool, Marilyn Kleinman, Ben and Julie and Harry Wool, and Janet Salami, remembered by Linda Rapchick, and Margot and Bernie Somer, Leon Somer, and Celia Savage, remembered by Olivia Somer Rosenbaum. We draw these names into our hearts as well as any other names that we're thinking about on this Shabbat. Zichrona livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. And let's join together in the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, which can be found on page 294 or 598. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yiriteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah v'vrach le'olam u'le'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramad, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say,
Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom milvanav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
V'imru amen. We're going to remain standing for Kiddush and Motzi, so I'm going to ask if you guys could pass out these little Kiddush cups to one another. And while they're doing that, and bring some of those Kiddush cups over to Rabbi Lipp and Cantor Rubin and myself, I want to make sure to say some thank yous. A big thank you to our ushers this morning. They did a tremendous job, so thank you, thank you, thank you to our ushering team. Thank you also to our musicians, to Miriam, and to our other musicians. And thank you to all of you our members and our guests for joining us on Shabbat morning and making this such a joyous occasion. And there will be an oneg upstairs, which you are most welcome to join us for. The Vishamru. Vishamru.
Vishamru ben Israel Beni uvein bnei Yisrael, oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru bnei Yisrael, et ha-Shabbat, v'aseh v'aseh, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash, shavat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, v'aseh ha-Shabbat. Al kin berachan leitum Hashemat vayikadshehu sabri. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen.
Okay, everyone in the class, come on forward. Come on forward. In the well. Everyone else, a hand on the shoulder of a person in front of you, creating a chain of blessing, leading to these remarkable, powerful women up front. Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lecher mik'haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom!
Shir hallelujah, hava, hava nashira. Shir hallelujah, hava, hava nashira. Shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Come grab some bread. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah. Hava, hava nashira, shir hallelujah, shir hallelujah.